Rosecroft Mays, Virginia, AFL-CIO.
Gina Maglianico, Virginia, AFL-CIO.
Molly Shear, Association of Flight Attendants.
Brett Horton, International Union of Elevator Constructors.
Great. Well,
And Dan Duncan, once again, Northern Virginia Labor. Two things I forgot to point out. For those who came late, behind the door on the right is the bathrooms. Behind the door on the left, the open door, is where we got some cold drinks and munchies. So help yourselves.
terrific. So this is a really exciting group to do this training for. I've done a number of these trainings before, but I think this is the first time I've done a common sense economics training with so much diversity in the room. And you are really the perfect group for common sense to be given to, because it's not simply an internal union training, and it's not simply a community group training. It's really about building a network of interest. So you guys are really the sweet spot. Before we jump into the macro picture, I want to get a sense for all of us of how we're all being affected by economic policy decisions in this country. And I'm going to do an exercise. Push back from the table a little bit so you have some room. It's a stand-up, sit-down exercise. I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want you to stand up if it applies to you or to somebody in your family or someone close to you. And some of these questions can feel kind of personal. So stand up at, it might be your cousin, not just you, so don't be shy about it. And look around the room as you're standing and see, who's standing, who's sitting, and think about what's going on in their lives, why are they standing or not. So the first question is, who remembers a time when we assumed that the next generation of workers would do better than their parents? Aha. Now look around and see, mostly in the back of the room, you can't see them. Some people are not standing up. Somebody's not standing up over here or here. And I think it's pretty much a generational divide. Thank you very much. You don't have to go to the gym tonight. You'll be doing your stand-up. So who has someone in your family who has lost his or her job in the last 5 years? Yep. So, losing work, it's in our households. Thank you. Do you or someone close to you make minimum wage or close to it? Know anybody close to you? Yep. Yep. So it's here in this room. How many of you know someone who has to work more than one job in order to put together their living? Yeah. Everybody stands, practically. If we did this 15 years ago, not so much. This is a relatively new phenomenon. Okay. Who has an adult child who has returned home to live with you in the last 5 years? Right? And there's always that vocal response before people stand up. All of you other people are lucky. So, who is the adult child who has returned home to live with his or her parents in the last 5 years? There you go. And we're going to talk about that later. There's a real reason for that. Stand up if you or a member of your family lost health benefits over the last year, or you just don't get health insurance at all. My husband gets mine. Yep. So even with the ACA, it's not working out. Stand if you or members of your family have missed a rent, mortgage, car payment in the last 3 years, or maybe you're struggling to pay off student loan debt. Yeah. Paycheck to paycheck. Who doesn't know whether or not you'll be able to retire the way you thought you'd be able to? Who's concerned about retirement security? Yeah. Thank you. And which of us in this room are worried that if our parents will be able to retire, it's only if they come to live with you or you help take care of their expenses? Parents, if your parents retire, the only way they'll be able to retire securely is if you help them or they come live with you. Yeah, he's on the ledge. Oh. So you can see that there's a lot of economic insecurity in this room. What messages do you take away? Were you surprised by any of it? Anyone? No? Do you feel that you live in a community that understands that this is happening in the community for people that live and work together?
No.
Why not?
I'm an organizer and I'm out there every day. People don't pay attention to anything other than, the little surrounding, maybe 1 minute outside the vehicle or, you know, their personal space. It doesn't get any more than one moment outside of that, really.
Mhm. I think a lot of what's happened in our communities and in our society is that a lot of people answer these questions for themselves, but they don't talk about it with their friends. How many people ever talk about having trouble making payments? Or, see, college students do, or former college students, it's a terrible.
Or one's too afraid to go back to school because of the student loans.
Right. I talked to a 40-year-old the other day who said, I'm gonna have college debt till the day I die. And that's shocking to me. But for a lot of people, it's individual.
Us talking to somebody that it can be them having problems. Yeah, I talked to folks. You know, it's funny, I meant to say something earlier, I was trying to, but we talk about it. I'm pissed off. I mean, we all are, otherwise we wouldn't be here every Saturday morning. We have precinct walk trying to get the right people elected, so.
Yeah,
But yeah, my sister, everything you name, she goes through.
yeah. And I think one of the things we need to do is help people understand that it's our whole communities.
I was gonna say, I have a friend who's undocumented and has a job, but the hours have been cut back, and he has a wife that's sick and a small time. So, you know, I can see that pressure, so my wife will occasionally slip him a little money trying to help keep him, you know, more afloat. But one thing that bothers me, I know labor gets people out to protest, and, you know, whether it's the fast food places or whatever. Well, why don't we see more like we see in the Frankenstein films, where people with the pitchforks are going to the homes of the richest people and saying, fork over more of the money. I just see too much, in general, passivity.
Yeah.
Not so much in labor, but in general in our society, accepting things that are crazy.
And there's a reason for that, this gentleman here.
I remember I took a government class at George Mason. It was the spring of '91, and the guy who taught the class was a guy by the name of Steve Jardine. He's a political strategist. He was saying back then, in the early '90s, that our generation was not going to live as well as our parents' generation. And he broke down a couple of reasons: education system, I guess, trade policy, the entitlement programs. And now both sides, Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives, everybody, it's now starting to talk about that.
Yeah, finally. Yes.
I was just gonna comment on his, you know, I believe, you know, labor hasn't had, you know, back in the early 1900s, you know, when the labor movement, you know, fully got cemented in this country, labor was atrocious. If you see the things out there in the labor market that were going on in that day, well, there's modern day things like that, but it hasn't quite reached everybody to the full extent. Like in this area, Fairfax County, they just come up with their first $10 million deficit for schools and things like that. And now they're going to have to start taxing people differently in this area. You know, and some of the economic policies and practices over the years have done that. It hasn't got bad enough yet, but it will
It's
if
coming.
things continue to get, you know. I believe that's why they're pumping zombies on TV. They want to get people without jobs, you know. That's who's going to be the zombies, people that can't feed their families, running through the streets, panicking. That's the zombie,
Yeah.
in my mind.
So we know that the economic policies of this country are hurting us individually. Let's talk about how we got here. Let's look at the macro picture and talk about the policies that have created the economy that we're functioning or not functioning under now. Because we know that, as Rich likes to say, the economy's not like the weather. It doesn't just happen, it happens for a reason. So this is our agenda. We're going to talk about our reality, and we just had a few conversations about it just now. It is a changing economy. We're going to talk about the corporate agenda. What are the policies that the corporate people and the ultra-rich are putting in place that are causing these things to happen? And then we're going to talk about our strategy, because we do have a strategy. This is not a pity party. We're going to talk about how workers and community allies can really come together and make a difference in this economy, or change this economy. So policies shape our economy. This is, you know, people get confused about economics. They think, oh, it's too big, I don't understand it, you know, it's beyond me. It's not beyond you. It's the policies that people put in place every day that account for the things that we're dealing with. After World War II, we had a very high level of unionization in this country. In 1955, 33% of the workers in this country belonged to a labor union. That was huge. And the impact was that it lifted the boat for everybody. Union and non-union workers saw basically their standard of living increase, and that was a really good thing. But something's happened. So one thing that's happened from 1948 to 2010, this is, the white line is productivity. So